Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. I'm your host, Rob Cramer, alongside, as always, my co-host, Daniel Bobo Kurlan. Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing good. Happy about that Mets win today.
Absolutely, a lot to be happy about. Nice win and a series win against the reigning World Series champion Atlanta Braves down in Atlanta for the Mets. We got a lot to talk about with the Yankees blowing a big game against Cincinnati last night. They're playing another game against them tonight as we speak. So going to be interesting to see how the Yankees end this 3-game skid. We also got some hockey news to get into tonight as the New York Rangers, Dan, I'm sure you are aware, have signed center Vincent Trocheck from the Carolina Hurricanes. Really good player just off the bat right here. What do you think about that signing?
I'm excited about that. I have a friend of mine in the Carolinas who told me, "Oh, you guys are so lucky you got that guy." Like they were.
Yeah, Trocheck is a hell of a player. Apparently, the Rangers told him he's going to be playing on the second line with Panarin. He's a really good face-off guy. They got him 7-year deal, which might be a bit steep for a guy who's in his late 20s. But you know what? At the number they got him, 5.6. This is a guy who definitely could have gotten over $6 million anywhere else. So very happy that the Rangers picked him up.
We got him on a good deal, and I think I think it's the first time we've had a great face-off man since trying to remember his name. Trying to remember.
You think it's Stepan, maybe?
Yeah, Stefan. Yeah.
Yeah. Derek Stepan was great at winning those face-offs, big face-offs, and this guy Trocheck won him at 54% in the regular season last year. He was even higher in the postseason, and he saw the Rangers up close. So this is a guy who knows this team. He knows what he's getting into, and I really like the defensive abilities of this guy too. His defensive ratings are very high, and he's going to bring a lot of that nastiness in the corners that the Rangers need too. So awesome signing. A bunch of stuff to get into that too. We're going to talk about the Rangers for a couple of minutes later on because they made a couple of big moves. They also signed Yaroslav Halak as a backup goalie. They traded Georgiev for a couple of picks. And also Rangers development camp is going on right now. So we'll get into all that, the Mets and the Yankees shortly. But before we do that, Dan, let's give ourselves a little plug at the top here for our social media. What's your social media?
You can find me, as always, you can find me on Bobo103 on Twitter and Bobo718DK on Instagram. I'm also Daniel Kurlan on YouTube.
Yeah, so check Dan out there and his awesome comedians of the compound little cozy or koozie he's got there right on his drink, keeping it nice and cold. What are you drinking there, Dan?
I'm just drinking a Bud, some leftovers from last weekend.
All right, very nice.
Koozie it's actually a promotional koozie. I think from the looks of it, they were giving these out at the show in Texas. Just by the back of it, it says here, Austin, Texas.
Very cool, man. Yeah, those comedians of the compound shows are great. It's it's a shame that Aaron isn't with the compound anymore and running more of those more often. But I'm also looking forward to at the end of the summer they're having that benefit for Gino Bisconti at Governor's over here in Levittown. So. I'm thinking maybe we should make an appearance there, Dan.
Sounds like a plan. Yeah, I have to say those comedians at the compound shows were fun, especially the ones that took place all weekend. Sometimes like when you got to be like at Atlantic City, like at one in Atlantic City. You may have seen my picture group. I got to appear in a group picture with just about everybody who was in that show that weekend.
Yeah. And it's crazy too that now two of those comedians, being Aaron Berg and Pat Dixon, unfortunately, are no longer with Compound. That whole situation that unfolded was pretty crazy.
But yeah, that was weekend in Atlantic City, or what I call watered down Atlantic City, because they had too many COVID restrictions for Atlantic City. Right, I felt like I had a watered down Atlantic City weekend because and stuff, and it was you couldn't really, there wasn't many places to get a late night bite to eat. Let's put it this way. That time.
Well, that stinks. I was just in the Poconos over the weekend for my girlfriend's birthday, and I had very much the same problem. No late night food.
What was that? Poconos, or they just or there was some restrictions?
What's that, buddy?
That sounds like the normal Poconos usually.
Well, it was. That's true. That is true.
Right, you're used to being able to get stuff late at night.
In New York, yeah, you could get anything anytime, So you're right. Oh, a little spoiled. What can I say?
That's what it felt like in Atlantic City. It felt like it was a watered down Atlantic City weekend in January of 2021.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, you're right. That was still in the kind of the craziness of the pandemic and everything. But yeah, so with that, now we got. But actually, before we move on, let me give a quick little plug to our show on social media. You can check out at @bsith_podcast. Check out all of our tweets at Best Seat in the House podcast on Instagram, and check us out, obviously, Best Seat in the House podcast on YouTube. Subscribe. We're trying to get our numbers up on there. Follow us, and once we reach 300 followers on Twitter, we're going to be giving out another gift card, Dan, right? So we got to get those numbers up on Twitter. We've been slacking a little bit the last couple of weeks. That's
for sure. Maybe we should do a go to a game with the two hosts of this show.
True. Do a little drive there at Citi Field,
where we reach a certain amount of subscribers, that a random winner gets to hit up a game with us.
That sounds interesting. That sounds like a plan. Maybe we'll have to set that up for one of the series coming out of the break after the All-Star break. I know the Mets play the Padres right around there, so we'll have to check that out. Also, in the beginning of August, there's a 5-game series against Atlanta, so maybe one of those series sounds pretty good.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Hopefully if it's lucked out very well, we could be seeing deGrom in that series.
Very true. Very true. And you know what? While we're getting into this right now, let's I was going to jump into the Mets anyway. Let's start off with a little bit of a deGrom update. So we're recording this on Wednesday the 13th right now, but by the time you'll be seeing this tomorrow on July 14th, this is going to be deGrom Day, because deGrom will be making his 3rd minor league start, right, Dan?
For Syracuse. And by the way, I don't know if you notice this every day, and if you look through the menus of the MLB .TV app, if you're a subscriber, they seem to be broadcasting one AAA game, and tomorrow they're going to be broadcasting deGrom's rehab start. Wow, very interesting. So that's pretty cool. That's a way to catch deGrom's rehab start. I'm going to be doing I might be doing a little two-screen action during that game, and I'll have the deGrom's little rehab outing on my phone. That's pretty cool. And actually, last time SNY did that, where they also streamed deGrom's rehab start on the SNY app as an alternate stream to the Met game that was going on that night. So it's going to be really interesting to see how, if that's just MLB.com. What's that, Dan? I also know some people in Florida who went to that game, by the way. Oh, yeah. If you've ever been into the Daytona area, it's a pretty neat little restaurant that has a pretty little, or it's a being Daytona. We know it's where the Daytona International Speedway is. There's this cool restaurant I ate at once that I enjoyed. That the seats look like they look like NASCAR Cup Series cars. The tables.
Very cool. Yeah, I actually love it down in Daytona there. Whenever we would go to spring training, we'd always stop at Daytona down on the way and check out Jimmy Hart, the Mouth from the South, his restaurant down there with all his Hulk Hogan merchandise and all that stuff. It was pretty cool, right on the beach. So
I know about that beach. I kind of also love that you can drive your car on the beach a little bit, which by the literally the beginning of the sport, by the way.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Right about that.
Way you get to kind of see what it might have looked like from their view.
This is true.
You should Google footage of this. It's a literally quite different from what we know today. Like, it was all standing room, and pretty much if a crash looked like it was going to head into where the fans were, pretty much everyone knew, run.
Just get out of the way.
Exactly. From that footage I've seen online of what it looked like, that's the best way to describe it.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that it was standing room only too, so that's pretty cool. But I guess it makes sense if it was just there at the beach.
That's how it started. Someone thought of the idea of just of having people race production cars on a temporary track on the beach.
Very cool, man. Well, if we're gonna come off our little NASCAR lesson here and move on to the Mets, like we were talking about, deGrom making his third rehab start tomorrow for AAA too. I'm surprised that they did 2 single A starts and now they're bumping him all the way up in competition level to AAA. He's flown through these 2 first starts, throwing 4 2/3 innings, striking out 11, not allowing a hit. So he's been dominant. It's going to be really cool to see him in a high pressure almost situation, right?
Yep. Logic was they want to have him pitch a rehab start and against maybe potential players that have had big league experience. Might have been what it was.
Very true. Very true. I'm just surprised because I think he's still going to have one more rehab start after this because they've been lining him up on 5 days each time out now. So this being the third one, he'll probably throw around 60 pitches this time for AAA. And then the next time he would be scheduled to pitch after that is Tuesday, which, as we all know, is the All-Star game. So it's going to be interesting to see if they opt to have him throw like a simulated game or if there is any minor leagues going that day. What's that, Dan?
Going to pitch a simulated game from what I heard because the minor leagues are not, they're off that day.
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking, that they're going to have to do something with him that day. So he's probably going to be back down at Port St. Lucie, like you said, throwing a simulated game, or maybe in Brooklyn, wherever they decide to do it. And he's going to do at least some kind of simulated game because they're going to have to make sure that he's, up to par, and actually that makes sense why they would put him against AAA now. So he gets that competition up before he just has to do a, simulated game against low-level minor leaguers.
And plus, I'm pretty sure maybe they'll have Alvarez catch him. Alvarez get used to a pitcher who he's going to be catching.
That's true. And what an awesome summer it has been for Alvarez, not only just hitting, but he got to catch Max Scherzer in a rehab start a couple of weeks ago. And now you're definitely right about that he's got a legit shot of catching Jacob deGrom too, which would be very, very cool. And something our 20-year-old prize prospect can really sink his teeth into.
By the way, he will be in the Futures game.
Yeah, him and Mark Vientos was added as a what's that?
This year it's on the Futures game, and the Celebrity Legends game is going to be, not only is it going to be, instead of being on the Sunday, it's going to be on the Saturday this year. It's also going to be on Peacock. So, and I feel MLB is not doing a good job putting this game on Peacock. Saying they want to reach more larger audiences with baseball. I don't think a streaming service is the way to go because not everyone's going to want to pay for a streaming service.
Yeah, it's true.
I got it for some content that's on Peacock. That's some sports content that I wanted to watch, so I have it. But I feel they need to do. They should put that game at least on MLB Network.
Yeah, that's a bad job not putting that in, especially for the young stars. I mean, you want people to know these stars, and for the few people you might pick up that just so happen to watch it on Peacock, I feel like you're going to lose a lot of people that would watch the game anyway that just don't want to pay for Peacock.
I actually attended this in 2013 at Citi Field. I got to see Pitt in a Noah Syndergaard and Brendan Nimmo.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Two guys who just a couple of years later would be starring for the Mets going to the playoffs.
So I got to see Nimmo in the minors and on the Cyclones, and I got to see him in the Futures game. Also, Alvarez, as I've mentioned before, Alvarez I've seen plenty of times on the Cyclones. So I've seen this guy hit, and he looked like he was locked in those days.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. Francisco Alvarez is the real deal. And it's going to be real fun to see what this team looks like next year with potentially having deGrom and Scherzer in the rotation for a full year together, bringing up, this kid into the majors and seeing what he does. Because right now, I got to tell you, I'm very, very down on James McCann. And I know it's not his fault with the injuries. You can't blame a guy for getting injured. But him getting, he's had very little production. I know we've seen his bat tick up a little bit lately. He hit that big home run earlier this week before he got injured. But it's just, I think his spot on the team could be in jeopardy if they're going to be bringing him, if they're going to be bringing Francisco Alvarez up, because everybody likes Tomas Nido, and I don't think he's going anywhere, right?
Yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere. It's possible. I could see maybe McCann being released after this year because I feel Alvarez, it's up in the air whether he'll be called up this year or not. I feel it's 50-50 right at this point.
Well, I don't think McCann's going to get released. I think if they get rid of him, they'll probably trade him because you don't want it to be a situation like Robbie Cano where you just let the guy go and they're paying him so much money. I mean, he's still got 2 years left at a pretty good price.
Get no K at least.
What's that, Dan?
Hopefully, lever out of that deal.
True. And I like James McCann. I hope he turns it around and comes back and is a valuable piece to the Mets, but it doesn't seem likely this year, at least.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it. Also, I'm intrigued that we might be seeing the first player to really become a star for the Mets at DH with Vientos.
Yeah.
Story I've never seen before. I mean, only time I could ever see like someone really legitimately like a player we knew as a DH was David Ortiz, who, by the way, congratulations, David Ortiz, and getting into the Hall of Fame. It's coming up in a couple of weeks, along with long overdue Gil Hodges. It's finally speaking of players long overdue getting your honors. I was at Keith Hernandez's number retirement ceremony. I was at that game.
I saw those pictures. Very cool. And yeah, you know what? While we're talking about that too, how was it being at that ceremony, Dan? Because I know you're a guy who had a close connection to the '86 Mets, being at Game 6. Seeing him on Seinfeld, seeing him these past 17 years in the SNY booth. What was it like to be there for the Keith Hernandez number retirement?
That day, as we know, that day I met Gary Carter. There were a couple of players I got to meet that day. Keith Hernandez, one of them. As a matter of fact, a couple of years ago, SNY did some promotional thing at the city. I got a picture with Gary, Keith, and Ron. I got Keith to sign that picture I took with him when I was little.
Wow.
I was like 4 years old, and he he was impressed that I had showed up with a picture that I took with him from years ago when I was little. That I remembered that I had this picture.
Wow, that's so cool, man.
Impressed with that, and I have to say it was pretty special. I purposely wore my throwback '86 jersey that day.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it brought a little magic that game. Like somehow, even after that little blunder in the top of the 10th, somehow I had a feeling. I think we got this. Somehow we got this, and the place rocked. That ballpark rocked that night, that day.
Yeah, that was cool to see. That was reminiscent of the playoff run in 2015 and just playing big games at Citi Field. It just felt like a big game, and you're right, it felt like one of those games that come hell or high water, the Mets were going to come out on top. That Pete home run to really get things going early on and break the ice was awesome. As he continues to hit a little bit better against lefties. And then, obviously Lindor. And man, we turned the page to today talking about Lindor. He hit that big home run on Saturday. He's had a hell of a week. That big home run on Saturday. He had a 3-hit game in Atlanta in game 1 of this series. Then he hits the big 3-run shot today to help seal the deal for the series victory today. How great has Francisco Lindor been this year?
I actually never really gave up on Lindor last year. I just had a feeling it looked like the same thing I saw with Piazza and Carlos Beltran, who felt like they went through that adjustment period, like getting comfortable playing in a large market. It probably took a little longer for them to get comfortable being playing in this high expectation team Mets, but once they got used to it and felt in their comfort zone, they were fired. Put it this way. And also Lindor, because his name is Francisco, I keep thinking of that scene in my mother's favorite Christmas movie, Elf, when remember when he's laughing at I think he's reading some book and the character's name was Francisco and he's laughing.
And he's just saying, Francisco.
I keep thinking of that. Things that my mom loves that movie. I actually went to see an anniversary screening of it in a movie theater.
I love that movie too, and I do always think of that scene too with Francisco. I can't not think of that scene from Elf whenever Francisco Lindor does anything. So that's hilarious.
When I take an out-of-state friend to the Empire State Building, I think of that scene also when he just pressed a million buttons.
So yeah, that's obviously a classic Christmas movie, and just great to see Francisco Lindor producing. I mean, and I agree with you too. I didn't give up on Lindor after last year. I just thought he had a bad year, and that he'd wipe the slate clean and come back and have a pretty good year this year. And the batting average might not be where you'd expect it to be, but I'm not going to complain about that when the guy's got 16 home runs and 64 RBIs, which leads all of shortstops in baseball. He's among the league leaders in RBIs. He's been terrific this year.
And I have to say, I don't know how this guy was an all-star snub, but whoever made those picks for the all-star game, Shizer.
Yeah, and you're right, because the Mets did have a couple of guys who were slam dunks to be all-stars this year. Pete Alonso, obviously, the guy's leading majors in RBIs. He's had a terrific year. If it wasn't for Paul Goldschmidt hitting like 350, Pete Alonso would be starting in the all-star game. Jeff McNeil, all-star, hitting,
Congratulations, Jeff McNeil, on becoming a father.
Very true. Very true. 2-time all-star. Now first-time father. Congratulations, Jeff McNeil, as it's so awesome to see him having a great bounce-back year this year. Also, Edwin Diaz. Talk about bounce-back years. The guy is just incredible this season. He's a human strikeout machine. So awesome to see, Edwin Diaz turn back the clock to his final year with the Seattle Mariners and looking like the elite reliever we thought Brody Van Wagenen traded for, right?
Exactly. As a matter of fact, when because of Edwin Diaz, when I was at an away game in Philly, I was ready to pull out my phone when Diaz was going to come to the mound. I was going to pull out his walk-up music. I was going to crank that up to 11 because at an away game I was going to do that.
Yeah, and everybody loves hearing those trumpets now, man, because
there was plenty of Met fans that made that 99-mile trip.
Yep, no doubt about it. And really awesome stuff out of Diaz this year. And also the one of the newest Mets, Starlin Marte, making his first All-Star game as a Met. I mean, it sucks that he's been kind of banged up at times this year where he just missed this series in Atlanta. Same things with Jeff McNeil, which, by the way, is really good for the Mets too, that two of our 4 All-Stars were out of the lineup for this whole series, and the Mets still managed to take 2 out of 3 from the Braves. So really good stuff from them.
Yep, I remember feeling like bummed out when I heard McNeil was going to miss the series. I said, man, couldn't they figure out a better way to plan this plan this thing a little bit better? But then we managed to pull off winning.
Yeah, you know what, though? When it comes to them having a baby and everything, it's like, I'm not going to begrudge Jeff McNeil missing 3 games in July. Maybe if it's a playoff series or something like that, you'd be like, okay, guys, come on, try not to have babies in October. But
still managed to come out on top even with this key series, and I feel we got what I hope we would at least get 2 out of 3 and gain some ground on Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, picking up the game, look, going into Atlanta, you can't sit here and expect a sweep. Maybe you can sit here for these 4 games against the Chicago Cubs, who have been a bad team this year, and say, hey, the Mets have to go out here and sweep these 4 games and go into, the All-Star break on a high note, which I'd love to see. I'm not going to, freak out if they don't sweep the Cubs, but I'm sure a lot of people are hoping for that.
Yeah, I'm hoping for at least 3 out of 4.
Yeah, 3 out of 4 is, if you split with the Cubs and you go 2-2 going into the break, that's not going to feel good, especially when you got to remember now, too, the Mets have to do their work against the Cubs because the Braves are going into just as a quote-unquote easy series as the Braves are taking on the Nationals for 4. So if the Mets split with the Chicago Cubs and the Braves take 3 out of 4, you're losing a game. Or if the Braves sweep and you take 2, then you're only up a half game going into the break. So the Mets really have to do their work.
I think I'm going to have to make a lot of use of that MLB at bat subscription. I'm gonna be firing up the laptop and doing them, the multiple screen, how you could put multiple games at once.
Yep.
I got to keep an eye on the Braves and the Phillies to make sure they're losing.
Yeah. Hey, right about that. And the Phillies have finally, hit a little bit of a snag as they've now lost 3 games in a row, and they're going into a big game tonight with Zach Wheeler on the mound. So they got to feel pretty good about that. But, you just got to keep your fingers crossed that things keep going south for the Phillies. And, maybe the Mets just kind of zap the Braves back to reality by taking 2 out of 3 at their house. You got to hope if the Nationals can squeak out a win or 2 this weekend against the Braves, that would be huge for the Mets going into the All-Star break, right?
That would be huge going into the All-Star break. I feel comfortable with that going into the All-Star break.
Yeah, very true, man. So then, coming out of the All-Star break, the Mets are going to have a homestand against the San Diego Padres, and we get our 2 games against the New York Yankees. So if you had to
series games, because my uncle might be, I got a call from my uncle saying he might be picking up tickets to that game.
Oh, really? What for which one? The Tuesday or the Wednesday?
I think it's a Tuesday. He said, "Unfortunately, my uncle Mike's a Yankee fan." Boo!
Unfortunately.
But I'll let it slide because out of all because my father, of all his in-laws, him and my uncle Mike were like very close friends.
Very cool.
So I'll let Uncle Mike I'll let it slide.
Yeah, Uncle Mike is off the hook for being a Yankee fan.
I said me and my uncle we're on the same side during football season.
Oh, he's a Giants fan as well. All right, very cool, very cool. So, and we'll be getting into football soon enough too. Also, Dan, I guess we're gonna be if you want to do it next week, or do you have the All-Star thing done for today?
I'll have it set up next week because an outlet had to be fixed up where I keep my laptop.
Okay, not a problem at all. We'll do the All-Star Mugshots next week during All-Star week, so it makes total sense. It'll be the day after the All-Star game, so Thursday during All-Star week will be our All-Star Mugshot show, right?
Exactly. These are the greatest. It's going to be a little bit of a difficult time finding the mugshots, but I can know for sure that these players did at one point. Well, whatever the severity of the crime could have been a small thing, but they did at one point had been in at least at a holding cell, and we're highlighting the greatest at each position that had maybe had let's just say an embarrassing moment.
Yeah, an embarrassing moment where they ended up on the wrong side of a mugshot. So we'll be getting into that next week. All right, and now that we got our Mets talk out of the way, let's get right into some Yankee talk too, Dan, because there's a lot going on in Yankee Town right now. As obviously they're running away with their division. They got a 14-game lead. They're rolling. They're the best team in baseball. They're over 60 wins, but they are on a 3-game losing streak right now, and they just lost in critical fashion against the Cincinnati Reds the other night. So, I can understand some Yankee fans being a little panicky right now, but for the most part, this team's still rolling. They just split a 4-game series with the Red Sox. So, Dan, how you feeling about the Yankees right now in particular? Do you think that they finally met this competition we were talking about earlier in the year?
Maybe starting to catch a wind and seem to be rising up during this, making the old big second half push. Because at first I didn't look like Boston was going to be in playoff contention. They're in a wild card. They're in a position to make the playoff, and it could be facing the Yankees in a very highly contested series. And I also feel the Yankees, unfortunately, they lost, of course, to the Cincinnati Reds. As Keith Hernandez says, those second division teams, they can be a bit pesky. They kind of scare me more, those second division teams.
Yeah, you're right about that, man. And teams like the Cincinnati Reds, they got nothing to play for right now, so they're going out stress-free. And in this 3-game series against the Yankees at Yankee Stadium too, which made it even more surprising that the Reds would come back and flex their muscle like that. But if we go back a week ago, the Yankees had just polished off 2 out of 3 against the Pittsburgh Pirates. They lost that tough first game, but they rebounded. Then they come back against the Red Sox and pound them the first 2 games, taking the Thursday game 6-5, and then taking the Friday game 12-5. So, everybody was pretty high on the Yankees after that. Then they lose that tough game on Saturday where the Red Sox really gutted it out. They gave up 2 in the top of the 10th, came back with 3, 1 in the bottom of the 10th. And then obviously they had a big night on Sunday Night Baseball to split that series with the Yankees. And then just like we mentioned now, so they're playing the Reds for the 3-game series now, but then they get another just as pivotal 3-game series against the Red Sox, this time at Yankee Stadium. It's going to be a very tight series because, like you said, the Red Sox are in playoff contention. They're not a slouch team right now. They're not, as we were just talking about, a second division team. So really, really, big 3 games. And it sounds crazy saying that for the Yankees too, because they're running away with this thing right now. But, just like the Mets saw a 10-game lead slip away very quickly, the Yankees could do the same thing. That's why they got to keep this up.
Yep, exactly. And they're going to be after they face their next their opponent, they're going to be facing the Red Sox. And when both teams are in contention, it's highly contested.
No doubt about it. There's always bad blood. There's always raucous crowds. There's always big bats and big pitches and big moments in those series. That's what Yankees Red Sox is about. Especially, look, if any of those teams are within shouting distance of 500, it's going to be an interesting series, and sometimes even if not. But the Yankees, things don't get easier for them after the All-Star break because we look at these 3 games against a very feisty Cincinnati team, which we as Met fans saw a couple weeks ago, where the Mets just barely got out of there with 2 out of 3. Then they face Boston this weekend, as we said. So you get those couple of days break in the All-Star break, but the Yankees are unlike a lot of teams where most teams come back on that Friday. The Yankees and Houston, because of a couple of rainouts earlier this year, are playing a doubleheader in Houston on that Thursday coming out of the All-Star break. So the Yankees play 2 games against Houston on that Thursday and then go to Baltimore over the weekend for a 3-game series. And Dan, the biggest story in baseball right now is the Baltimore Orioles, who have won 9 games in a row.
I recall reading some very prospect, some websites that are covering prospects, that Baltimore does look like they were having a deep farm system. So this doesn't surprise me that maybe they may have peaked 1 year earlier than expected.
Yeah, I mean, right now, if you look at the American League East, every single team in that division is over 500. The Orioles are not a bad team. They're 44-44 right now. And look, if you're a 500 team, just about 90 to 100 games into the season, that's pretty impressive for a team like the Orioles that has not even sniffed a 500 record in years, since before Buck Showalter left. I mean, Showalter left in 2018, where that team really bottomed out and went 47-115, which almost seems incomprehensible that the Mets have already won more games than that Oriole team did all year that year for Buck Showalter. But, so that team bottomed out that year. But over the course of these last 4 or 5 years now, they have really built up their team. They brought up this catcher earlier this year. They still have, big piece guys like Trey Mancini and, a lot of young talent on that roster. So really going to be interesting to see what the Orioles can do here, because especially with this 3rd wild card now, they're in serious position for a playoff spot now. So the Yankees are going to be playing a team, you get 2 against the Astros right out of the break against one of the best teams in baseball, and then one of the hottest teams in baseball in the Orioles so it's not going to be easy for them, because then they get the day off and have 2 against the Mets. And, who knows how the Mets are going to have their rotation lined up to face the Yankees, because they could be facing deGrom, Scherzer, or deGrom and Scherzer, or neither, depending how it works out. Maybe the Mets will pitch both of them that previous weekend against the San Diego Padres. So what do you think, Dan? Do you think the Yankees are going to run into either of the Mets aces, or do you think, what are your thoughts on that?
That deGrom could be on track to come back either during the Padres series or the Yankee series. So it's realistic possibility those 4 games we could be seeing deGrom.
Yeah, exactly, man. And I could see Scherzer, depending on how the Mets work it out. I could see Scherzer pitching that Friday night against the Padres at Citi Field in the black uniforms, and then that would line him up perfectly to pitch that Wednesday game against the Yankees. So going to be really interesting to see how Buck Showalter and Billy Epler combine to put this thing together. And hey, that's what happens when you have these two great pitchers now.
I hope it works out that I am going to be at one of those two games. Let's face it, the way the Mets are playing this year in first place, I don't think I've ever seen. I think this might be the first time I'll really see the Met fans having control of their own stadium during the Subway Series. I remember 2006. Remember the game David Wright, the walk off.
Yeah, against Rivera.
I was there. It felt like it was at least 5% Met fans at that ballpark that day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It felt like the Met fans dominated the stadium that day.
Especially in a town that everybody is going to recognize as a Yankee town. It's always nice when you can defend your home turf and feel like you outnumber them greatly.
When David Wright got that walk-off double, Shea was rocking that night.
Yeah, over the head of Johnny Damon. I remember that well. I was also at a game at Shea Stadium where the Mets beat Rivera in '99, the Matt Franco game. That's one of my favorite games I was ever at.
That one, 16, 17 years old me was there.
Oh, you were at that game too?
Yeah, I was about 16 or 17 years old when I was there during it.
Wow, yeah, that was '99. So I was 12. I hadn't even turned 13 yet.
Surprisingly, that I still have that black Mike Piazza jersey, and it still fits me. And one of the games we were wearing the black jerseys. I mean, I could see people looked like they were wearing black jerseys that looked like they just bought at the souvenir store.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had since that era.
Yeah, man. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I still have a good Mike Piazza black jersey from when I was a kid too. But so as we'll talk about the Yankees for another minute or two. So I mean, after they get the two games against the Mets, which is always a very intense series, even if it's only two games. Then they get a little breather over the weekend for the deadline with the Kansas City Royals going into August. So the Yankees, I think that the next couple of weeks now, where they're going to be playing the Mets, who are a first place team, the Astros, who are a first place team, the Orioles, who are red hot right now. They're going to be playing the Red Sox again, who are a playoff team as we speak. So the Yankees are going to have a lot of tests up until that second division team, as we mentioned earlier, Kansas City Royals series.
And I also got to say, I'm a Met fan, but I know plenty of Yankee fans who were annoyed by this. What were they thinking with that Amazon deal? It's a local deal in the New York area, as we all know. The Yankees sold some of their local broadcasts to Amazon.
Yeah, that was definitely a very, very weird deal, as it's definitely the first of its kind for Major League Baseball, at least, where a team just decided to sell a share of its local broadcasts to a streaming network. So yeah, you're definitely right about that. And man, I can't blame Yankee fans for being upset about that, because it'd be like if the Mets sold some of their games to Peacock. Even though I have Peacock mainly because of the WWE, it would still be so annoying, and especially to fans that don't have it.
Yeah, and I keep fearing that's going to happen because SNY part ownership of SNY is held by NBC Universal.
Yep.
And does own Peacock. So even though I would not like it, even though I have Peacock, I would not like that they would do this. I have a strange feeling that that could be a possibility, because NBC Universal has part ownership of SNY.
Yeah, that would not surprise me at all. And hey, you know what? I wouldn't even care if they did that. And obviously, I would be annoyed for fans that wouldn't be able to see it, but I'd be able to see it, so it would personally be okay with me. But would make it really okay with me is especially if they knew it was going to be like, let's just say that before the season, they said, okay, the Mets are going to put 20 games on Peacock. If they said that we're still going to have Gary, Keith, and Ron in those games, I wouldn't bat an eye. I wouldn't care. Right?
That part I wouldn't mind. Maybe also do a thing where give residents in the New York area maybe a little discount on Peacock, if that was the case.
That's true. That definitely wouldn't be a bad idea. A little goodwill to the fans who are willing to play and pay. I mean, so so very interesting deal for the Yankees there with Amazon. And do you have any details on that, Dan? What went into that? How many games are they going to be having on Amazon now? Because I saw it, but I didn't really read too much into it.
The Amazon deal replaces the deal they had with WPIX Channel 11. They had a limited amount of games that were produced by Yes Network, airing on Channel 11, and this replaces the deal they had with WPIX.
Wow! So is that going to be like we just said, where it's going to be on the streaming service, but on Amazon, but it's going to be a Yes broadcast?
Yeah, exactly. They're Yes broadcasts. I got an Amazon subscription. I used it to watch. I'm gonna have to make use of an Amazon subscription during football season for every time the Giants are playing on a Thursday night.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true, man.
Not counting the Thanksgiving Day, which is a Thursday night. Thank God the Thanksgiving game is gonna be on. I'll be able to see the Giants kick the Cowboys' ass while I'm eating my Thanksgiving dinner in front of the TV.
Yeah, Yankees Giants on Thanksgiving is going to be really cool this year. We'll have to do a little something for that since we tape on Wednesdays and our show will be coming out on Thanksgiving this year.
Yep, I realize that. Yeah, so maybe we'll little Thanksgiving thing. Yeah, they're gonna be. But yeah, the Giants Cowboys on Thanksgiving. And thank God that's a rare Thursday night game that's not going to be on Amazon. It'll be on, I think, Fox or CBS. I forget what network's carrying that game, but this is going to be a rare time that the Giants are going to be playing on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, well, usually the Cowboys get the late game at for normally it would have been the late game. Now they added the 8:00 game on NFL Network or Amazon, whatever it's going to be this year. But the Cowboys would usually get the 4:00 game. So it's probably going to be Giants, Cowboys at 4:00 on Fox.
Yep, exactly. I'll be no doubt I'll be in front of my TV eating my Thanksgiving dinner, depending how close to 7 the food is ready, because I know sometimes not ready until around 7, depending when everyone started cooking.
Very true. Very true. That'd be perfect timing. So, and also too, as we're talking about, the timing and everything right now, let's head over to the ending here, because we're just about coming down to the end here now, as we did our good, Yankee talk. Now let's wrap up the show with some New York Rangers talk, as we started off the program earlier talking about how the Rangers had signed center Vincent Trocheck from the Carolina Hurricanes to a 7-year deal worth $5.6 million a year. So that comes out to somewhere over $30 million for this guy total. A really good deal. Guy who was playing. He still had 50 points last year. He was never really playing with any top offensive players. So you stick him next to Panarin, and you expect big things from this kid, right?
Yeah, exactly. Also, I have a feeling that Strome is going to be leaving.
Oh, yeah. Well, I definitely think that, because right now the Rangers cap situation is very, very tight. So as we mentioned earlier, not only did they put this together, they signed backup goalie Yaroslav Halak to a 1-year, $1.5 million deal. They also signed, did you see this, Dan? They signed Louis Domingue the backup goalie who played most of the first round series for the Penguins against the Rangers. The Rangers actually signed him to a 2-year, 2-way contract. So he's probably going to end up being a depth starter for the AHL team, because they let both their goalies walk this year. So it's going to be pretty interesting seeing him play for us now, right?
I feel like they made a good depth signing there with the Penguins.
Yeah, Louis Domingue proved that he still has it. He's a good goalie, and stashing him at Hartford is definitely going to be good, just in case the Rangers run into any injury problems or they need a emergency goalie here and there, and just a depth piece that I really like that the Rangers brought in. I like that more than Halak. What do you think about that, Dan? What do you think about Yaroslav Halak, the former Islander, the former Boston Bruin, as the new backup goalie for the Rangers for the season?
I think we got a decent backup, Halak.
I don't know, man. He has been very inconsistent over the last year or two. Really, ever since he left the Islanders, it really makes me nervous that he's going to be the primary backup.
I feel like there'll be a competition potentially with him and Domingue for the backup goalie spot during the preseason.
True, that could be, but I also feel like the fact that they signed him to a 2-way contract and Halak is only a 1-way contract, I feel like they kind of tip the scales in the favor of Halak. Like, I think he would have to be really, really bad to not get the job, right?
Exactly. It might make me a little bit nervous on those games that take place on back-to-back days.
Yeah, but you know what? Hey, let's just hope that there's something about the New York Rangers uniform that brings the best out of Halak, because we remember as Ranger fans, this guy has killed the Rangers in the past, and he always plays very, very good against the Rangers and Madison Square Garden in particular. So let's just hope that we can sprinkle that Rangers dust on him and get the best out of him.
Hopefully that Garden magic rubs off on him, and he'll be a part of a Garden party.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. So just like you mentioned too, when we started talking about the Rangers, that you think this is probably spells the end for Ryan Strome. I think you're right too, because the Rangers really only have, after all these signings and everything else now, they only have about $3 million left in cap space. And that's probably only going to be able to bring in Capo Caco back on a new contract, probably a bridge deal, which is, usually means a 2-year contract that gets you to his next big contract. So he's probably going to get somewhere in the range of $2+ million. And they're probably going to use the rest of that money on a backup goalie at AHL Hartford. The crazy thing to me, though, is that they were asking Chris Drury about Tyler Motte because, Motte's not going to take that much money to re-sign him. He'd probably come back for somewhere under $2 million. And they specifically asked him today at the press conference if he thinks there's going to be enough room to bring back Motte. Because you got to remember, too, Frank Vatrano is gone. He signed a 3-year deal worth north of $3 million with Anaheim. Copp, Andrew Copp, the guy they gave up a first-round pick for from the Winnipeg Jets, is reportedly, I don't know if it's 100% yet, but they said he's signing a 4-year contract with his hometown Detroit Red Wings. So 2 big guys that contributed a lot at the end of the season and in the playoffs are definitely not coming back. And from what I'm hearing, it looks like Tyler Motte isn't coming back either, because Chris Drury said that the cap situation might be a little too tight to bring him back. And that makes me sad that none of those guys are going to be able to come back. Obviously, it's business, especially in a cap league. There's nothing you could do about it. But what do you think about that, Dan, that all 3 guys that they brought in that made big contributions probably won't be back next season because 2 of them are already signed, and it looks like they don't have the money for Motte.
Unfortunately, looks like it's gonna happen. But what can we do about it? I still think we got a good team, especially we got some good players up in the AHL Harvard coming up. So we might be in good shape for for hopefully what'll be another big year. Hopefully, maybe even bigger than last season.
Yeah, I agree. This team definitely has good things in its future. There's going to be some more youth on the team next year. Believe it or not, there's going to be, obviously no Nemeth is going to be here. So they traded him in essentially a cap dumping deal. They traded a third round pick a couple of years from now and a second round pick a couple of years after that, just to get him off the off the roster pretty much, at his $2.5 million salary off the roster. They ended up getting back, interestingly enough, I forget the kid's name, but the kid they got back from Arizona in that deal was the defensive pair teammate of Keandre Miller at Wisconsin in college. So interesting. I wonder if the connection there kind of intrigued Drury a little bit. But yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to be seeing more Niles Lundqvist next year. Maybe Robertson is going to be coming up. A lot of these defensive prospects, Nate Jones and all these guys they're going to be coming up, and it's going to be really a competition now. That it's going to be a lot of kids competition. You could probably pencil, or actually, as a matter of fact, you could probably use, some marker and pen to put Filipino in as third center now with the addition of Trocheck. But how do you think this team's shaping up now, Dan? I'm sure there's still some moves on the horizon, but we're going to be seeing a little more youth. Kravtsov, remember too, he had all that trouble with Russia and all the issues with the Rangers over the last couple of years. He's back in the fold next year. The Rangers are going to need a low salary player like him. What do you think about that?
We've lucked out there. We're gonna have an exciting team. It's gonna be an exciting season. Can't wait to see how it unfolds. And I'm pretty sure there'll be some moves coming up if we're right there in at the trading deadline. They're gonna do what it takes to get to win.
Absolutely, man. I totally agree. I see Chris Drury taking some flack from fans now for certain things. Look, I'm not going to sit here and complain about adding a guy like Vincent Trocheck. He's really going to help the defense of this team, the defensive reliability. And you know what, too? An interesting thing about this kid Trocheck is that he knows Gerard Gallant very well, as he played a couple of years under Gallant with the Florida Panthers early in his career. So, there's the connection there. There's the connection that he knows this team so well. And I think just bringing this guy into the fold is going to be a big plus and positive for the Rangers. To close out on that, Dan, did you agree with that? You think adding Trocheck is going to be a net positive for the Rangers?
This one's definitely going to be a positive for us this year,
especially in the playoffs too. This guy is a big time playoff performer. So
expecting big things from this guy.
Yeah, you're right, man. You're right. And he's still not in his 30s yet. So, the Rangers hopefully get a couple of good years production out of him. Look, even if you get the first 3 or 4 years and those last 2 or 3 years is where you're saying, maybe this deal was a little too long. Hey, that's the price of being a big time team right now, and a team that is hopefully on the precipice of winning a Stanley Cup championship. And with that, I think we're coming to the end here of episode 19 of the Best Seat in the House podcast. And before we get out of here, Dan, give yourself one more plug.
Sure. I'm on Twitter, Bobo103NYC, Instagram, Bobo718DK, and YouTube, Daniel Kurlan.
All right. Check Dan out there. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at bsith_podcast. You can check me out there on too. My last name, Cramer and Y on Twitter. You can also check us out on Instagram at Best Seat in the House podcast. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Best Seat in the House podcast. So thank you once again, everybody, for checking out our podcast and all the support that we receive from all of our good friends on Twitter and social media and all around. So thank you, everybody, for all the support. And enjoy the All-Star game. Enjoy All-Star week. And we'll catch you next week on the Best Seat in the House podcast.